When was the last time you said something to yourself that you would never say to another person? So, this episode, it's not about toxic positivity. It's not about affirmations. This is about understanding the voices and taking your power back from it. So, I want to do this one because I think every single guy that's listening to this has this problem, but nobody really likes to talk about it. So, Jason, you and I have talked about this before. What's your experience when it comes to the negative self-talk, the voices in our head, so to speak?
Yeah, it's like, it's different, I find, for our generation, because it's like you grow up and it's like, with boomer parents, as a kid, you're meant to be seen, not heard. You know what I mean? And I think you can really relate to that. So it's like you didn't talk much, you didn't say what you wanted to say, you held everything in. And then as you grow up, like school is the same way, and military is very the same way. Like, oh, I have an idea. Shut up, newbie. Like, you're a private in the military, you don't have an opinion. So you battle with that kind of growing up where you don't say anything for the longest time because you weren't allowed. And then as you get older, you struggle with the voices and wanting to ask for help or wanting to talk to people because you didn't talk your whole life. Like, there was rules about talking, when you could talk. Your parents didn't want to hear it. So it's very different, I find, for our generation compared to the young ones coming up now. But in your own head, it can either be your best supporter or worst enemy, So when I was trying out for like special forces and all that, the voices in my head actually helped me a lot. Like, they were on my side. When I was training for it, when I was surviving in the pool, the drowning phase, all that, the voices were on my side. But in college, in my younger years, they were really against me. Like, I'd have a bad test. You're not smart enough. You're not going to make this. You're not going to graduate as an accountant. Whenever I struggled more with the voices for academic reasons than physical reasons. Physical reasons, the voices were always on my side. Academically in school, especially my first kind of like grade 8 to almost the end of high school, I actually struggled. Like, I was behind, I wasn't as quick, my report cards weren't that good, so the voices were really against me in that part. Long-winded answer, sorry.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, fortunate enough, like my mom wasn't like that. I mean, I know you've talked to me about your parents and kind of how they were with you. I think the only time I can kind of relate to that is when I was being a pain in the ass, which was more often than not. And then I definitely would be better off being not seen or heard. But no, I get exactly where you're coming from when it comes to the voices that we struggle with or that we contend with. For myself, it was a lot to do with school. And I can completely understand where you're coming from, right? Especially when the doctor told me, oh, you have ADHD. Because, telling an 11-year-old that makes complete sense to a kid, because I didn't even know what the hell the acronym stood for. Like, I don't know what ADHD meant, really. I mean, he explained it to me, but an 11-year-old doesn't grasp that. All I heard is, okay, I'm dumb. And then everything after that meant that I couldn't do it. So school was a struggle. And everything I tried to learn, actually, no, let's be honest. I never tried to learn anything, really. I just used the excuse that, well, I have this disorder, right? This struggle, which means I'm going to be a class clown for life and I'm never going to learn anything. I think that was kind of the first time I really had a voice in, actually, no. I think it was in kindergarten when I realized I was different from everyone in my class because I was the only one with a single parent. So actually that was actually, if I think about it, that was actually probably the first voice I had, and actually the first wall that I put up when I was a kid was that. Because everyone in my class, because we're talking 1985. I'm sure there was a lot of kids in my class whose parents maybe weren't happy, but they were still together because divorce wasn't as common back then. So I was the only kid in like a class of, I don't know, maybe 25 or whatever there was back then that was divorced. The only one with a mom. Right? And it was just, now I was different than everyone. All the other kids, they had a dad, they had a mom, they had siblings maybe. And there I was, solo. So I think that was actually probably the first time I had that negative voice kind of creep in. And as a kid, I don't think you really understand that.
Yeah, you battle with it. You don't know if it's real. Like I don't know if I brought this up on the podcast before, but I have two brothers, and they are beyond smart. Like they're both computer programmers. Like they write code for a living. They, I mean, they put me to shame when it comes to education. So it's like I was like getting these B's in school and stuff, but my brothers didn't study and were just acing everything. Like, and you see that, and then your parents are like, why can't you be like your brothers? And then you just start, more self-doubt, more self-talk. But I think that's why I went the physical route, because I was just getting left behind in the intelligence between my brothers. So I don't know, just something switched, and I went the physical route, and the voices have always helped me in the physical route. They've always been on my side. So I've used that to my advantage. But yeah, like even doing tests, even to this day, like people say, oh, butterflies every time you do a accountant test or a written test. Yeah, I would still get them. Still get nervous. Even though you study stuff like that, I would still get nervous with doing written tests and stuff like that. That anxiety that builds up, that like, you read the first two questions and you don't know the answers and you're like, oh my God, I'm an idiot, and it starts right away. Like that first two questions can either set you up for success or destroy your test. If you know the first two, you're good. If you don't know the first two or three, you're like, oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I'm screwed.
Yeah. So
that was me. That was me at every test. The first two questions or three questions, it's just like you. I don't know this, and then I would just give up.
Exactly. And then the voices start going, and they make it worse and worse and worse.
Idiot, so like, you're gonna fail. Like you're dumb.
Yeah.
Why bother trying?
Exactly.
Right? You've literally quit before you even got started.
Yes.
I'm like I'm throwing in the white flag. Like just waving. Here, I'm gonna use a Kleenex for that. Just waving the white flag. Like I'm done. Like I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm just going to give up. And it's funny because I think we're both, kind of, we struggle academically, but physically we're more gifted. I was maybe never the fastest or biggest or strongest kid in my class, especially when I was, the shortest and kind of the roundest for a while, but I loved physical activity like most boys.
Yeah.
Right. It was fun. I was good at that. It was something I could do reasonably well.
Yeah.
So,
I liked it because I could run faster than my brothers. You know what I mean? So I was excited because I could actually beat them in something. And then it was like military though, like when we tried out for special forces, and guys weren't able to run as fast as, when you're well rested and you're well fed, you run fast. But when you're tired and hungry and everything, all of a sudden you run slower. Well, I knew that was going to happen, but I kept going. But guys would get in their head like, oh, I'm weak. I'm not as good. These guys are faster than me, and they would tap out. They would quit. They would get on the bus, as they call it. The voices would just build up in their head. Like I've seen people. I think you even told me you'd walk out of a test because you just the voices in your head were too strong, and you let them win, and you just walk out. And I've seen it so many times. Guys were doing fine in the Special Forces tryout, but the voices in their head got to them so bad that the voices made them quit, not them wanting to quit.
Self-doubt is just something we all struggle with. So let's get into it, right? So where do the voices come from? Now, I believe there's three areas, three sources that contribute, you can say, to the negative self-talk. So first, let's cover the past, right? So the past, you have regret, you have failure, and you have shame. And these are things that I struggled with for a long time. So it's either things you did or didn't do, right? The version of you that made the wrong call and how that version follows you around pretty much almost for the rest of your life, right? The past voice, it is literally the loudest because it's based on things that actually happened. So there's receipts, there's evidence, right? So I did, therefore I am. Right? And then that's the voice that's just formulated because we had that one or two or three experiences, and it just replays in your head over and over and over again. So, Jason, when you hear this one, okay, Is there a specific moment maybe that comes to mind? You know, you don't have to go deep, but just something that you can maybe suggest for the audience, or that you can name for an area that you struggled with when it comes to this.
For bad voices?
Well, like a specific moment in your life.
A lot of it's like I carry still a lot of, and I know it's dumb, but I still carry a lot of childhood trauma that I need to let go. And, what parents said to you growing up, or just stuff like that, I need to get over. I need to, like, it was so long ago, but for some reason it lives in my head rent free, as they say. So that's something I need to, and I've gotten a lot better since working with a psychiatrist and stuff like that, and those demon voices that still kind of sneak in there a lot of times, like maybe my parents are right, and maybe it was me and my fault and stuff like that. So I still struggle with that. That's still kind of a big one that I play with. That kind of haunts me.
Makes sense. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in our audience right now that can't relate to something that was told to us by a parent, by a teacher, by even a peer. Could anyone in our life, right, that said something and it stuck. Because in that moment, we were probably embarrassed, ashamed, fearful, anxious, whatever it is, right? And then it was just, I guess, made more real by what was said by somebody else. We already felt a certain way, but now someone's kind of hammering it home. And now it really starts to take root into who we kind of are. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, especially when you're being compared to people, like compared to your brother. Like, I remember going through school, obviously behind my brother, he's older. And then teachers would give me the test when after, and they'd be like, oh, I see you're not like your brother. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But teachers back then would just give it to you. You know what I mean? I mean, they used to hand out a test back to us. They used to read your test results out loud and then put it on your table. You know what I mean? Like, there was no, and just be like, oh, geez, you're not as smart as your brother, I see. It's like, it was just little things you could hear that stick in your head. And I don't know why these little jabs stick in your head so well when you're growing up, but they do. And they just, they come back and they could just piss you off for your whole high school years. They could just get at you. And then sometimes it makes you change your career or doubt yourself to the point you maybe don't go to college or you don't go to university. Like, I've known people where they've had such negativity over high school or comments that they completely changed their path that they wanted to go in because they didn't think they'd be able to make it. And the voices won,
No, that I can definitely relate to. I remember walking into the gym the first time at the YMCA on Maryville, falling in love with it, and just like realizing, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to work in a gym. I want to be a trainer, and I thought that was just like, that was my calling. I knew it was. And then as soon as I shared that with people, holy crap. Supported I was not. Like, no way, you can't do that. You'll never make any money doing that. What are you, stupid? That's a stupid career. Okay, I guess I'm not going to do it. Hell, even when I was out of prison and working in construction, hating the job. Look, I had a great boss. Him and his dad, bless their hearts. Friends of mine I grew up with, gave me an opportunity as soon as I walked out. And like I said, always going to be grateful to them for doing that for me. But I hated it. Monday to Friday, I couldn't wait for it to be Friday. And then as soon as Sunday came around, I was dreading Monday. Because I'm like, ugh. Back to work tomorrow. Back to work. Back to a job I hate. And then I started doing personal training part-time. And you know what? People still, what are you're going to go be a personal trainer at your age? They don't make any money doing that. People don't make money. You can't make a living off of being a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Thank God. And like talking about this whole voices in your head, it's hard. But thank God I had a wife who supported my decision. And she's just like, go for it. Do it. is the one thing you've always talked about, the one thing that I think you would really be good at. Thank God I listened to her. Thank God I didn't listen to everyone else, and I didn't listen to the voices in my head.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you ask me, like, how to get those voices to stop or whatever, that is a hard question. I remember you, before we started this, you said, hey, we're going to talk about voices in the head. And I was like, oh, God, Tyson, don't ask me for advice. Because, like,
hum louder than the voices talking. It's like, it's
I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it later, but, obviously it's having to sit with them. But again, we'll cover that a little bit later on. So the other thing, again, I said there's 3 things. So of course, we just covered kind of that past, right? The regret, the failure, the shame. For me, that, especially with what I did in my life, I mean, I could technically just always think, well, I'm a criminal. I'm no good. I took someone's life. Piece of shit. I mean, that's what I thought for the longest time. I was a failure. I screwed up as a son. Never good at anything. Right? That past, thank God I addressed it. That past could have followed me around until my deathbed. And I mean, the voices are always there a little bit. But you have to acknowledge why they're there. So for me, that was a big thing, right? You have to start addressing the past. Right? If you don't acknowledge that, it's going to live, like you said, rent-free in your head. And then you have the present, right? So that's the gap between who you are and who you feel you should be, right? So we have daily obstacles, we have friction, and we might feel, well, I'm not measuring up to my own standard of where I should be in life, right? The feeling that everyone else has it figured out, and you're still trying to play catch up. So I don't know if you've ever run into that comparison game. Like there's the social media, other guys in your circle, that kind of thing. So has that ever been anything? Maybe even in the special forces. I know you've talked about guys you've trained around, the best of the best, even the guys that trained you to get ready for special forces. I forget what you call them.
They're called PSP.
Yeah, that's it. Thank
title.
you.
Yeah.
PSPs, right? So like you have that. So is this something you've ever struggled with as well? Like kind of that present, where you are, where you think you should be, and then there's that comparison that starts to happen?
Like for that part, for the special forces and all that, I was lucky. Like, because I had, like I said, the voices were on my side. And I remember seeing faster runners and all that, but at that time I didn't mind going up and asking them, hey man, like how do you do this? And they'd be like, oh, put some of these interval trainings in there and put some of this in. And then the advice they gave me worked, which helped my voices and all that. But for that kind of episode, the voices were on my side, luckily. And I loved it because they gave me the power, So, but there was times like, on your selection part where it's just a week of, intense PT and everything, day one, I would see some of these guys just take off like rabbits. And then, you have that little voice like, oh no, like, you are not trained enough. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, just hang on, like stay as close as you can. And then day 2, you notice they're not taking off anymore, and you're right there. Day 3, you're still right there. Day 4. So the voices and the confidence get bigger if you're well trained. So I find that they've always helped me in the physical part. They've always been on my side in the physical part.
I mean, that's good, because a lot of the time, and I think this is where, and I think this is why you succeeded and did so well in JTF too, is that you were coachable. This is where I think a lot of guys struggle with the ego. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to tell me. I know that. No, you were like, oh, you know what? I'm not great at this. I could be better. In fact, I need to be better if I'm going to reach my goals. And that's a growth mindset. That's something I didn't have for the longest time. And that's something I think that most men struggle with.
Yeah. It's funny. I had that open mind for JTF training, but I didn't have the mind when I started training with you. I didn't have the open mind. It's so funny because for JTF, running, the get better, swimming, everything, completely open mind, voices on my side. As soon as I started training with you and you wanted to take heavy weights and Arnold Schwarzenegger's style lifting out of my routine, I hated it. My mind was closed, and I did not have an open mind. So it's crazy what your mind is open to and what it's not. Because I was not open to training the way I trained. Because I thought it got me through some of the hardest things in my life. Why change it? You know, like it worked for me. That my strength helped me. My strength saved my life in a couple situations. So why would I change my training? Like I was so scared to change it. Yeah.
I think this all, I mean, whether it's the past, the present, and we're going to be talking about the future, I think it all relates to our identity, right? And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Right? It's our brain wants to keep us exactly kind of where we are. It knows it. It's safe. It's comfortable. And then the minute we start to kind of question or say, hey, I need to do something different, I need to improve upon this, our brain's going to fight us. It's going to fight against everything that we do, whether we're trying to change habits, implement, different things, good things, and start removing bad things. No. Whoa. We don't know that. We don't want to do that. Why do you want to do that? Right? And then the voices are there. Right? You've always been this way. Why do you want to change? Right? It's almost like trying to leave the bad circle of peers.
Yeah.
Right? You might know you're in a bad circle, and the few will never change the many, but the many will always change the few. So you might want to find that, hey, I need to get out of this. Well, if your voices in your head are louder than the ones that you should be listening to, change is real.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this this guy I was locked up with in medium security, talking about like kind of the comparison game. And again, this is the voice in the head. He had gotten his parole. He was a lifer. He had gotten his full parole. He got out. He started working really hard, and his family were all very successful. They all had their houses, nice cars. Some of his siblings or relatives had boats, like all very well-to-do in their community. And he just felt like he needed to catch up. I mean, I think he had spent 12 or 15 years in prison, right? So he started his own, I think it was a painting company or something like that. And he was just working like an animal, working like a dog, trying to kind of catch up to the others that were around him, forgetting that he had lost 12 or 15 years of his life while they were able to continue on. So he started to compare himself to where they were at, not acknowledging where he was, where he should be, right? They were on chapter 20. He was on chapter 2. You can't be where they're at when you're living where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And then he started to use weed as a coping mechanism. Well, this is before weed became legal. And even myself, my conditions, even though weed's legal, I can't consume it. It's just part of my conditions, and that's fine. Right? But back then, when he had gotten his parole, weed was still legal. He started coping, trying to manage his stress, his anxiety, his depression through drugs. He tested positive, and he lost another 2 years of his life. They brought him back in because he broke his conditions, all because of the voices. Like they will break you.
Yeah.
If you're not careful. You got to be so careful about what you allow these voices to say. And of course, now we have the third. So that's the future. So fear that who you want to be is impossible, right? The fear that it's too late or that you're just too far behind. Most men, they're fighting all three of these voices at the same time, and they don't even realize it, right? And that's why it feels relentless. Because if it's not the past yelling at you, it's the present, and if it's not either of those two, it's the future, or sometimes it's all three. Like, how are you ever supposed to hear the right thought when all you have is three voices in your head? One from the past, one from the present, one from the future, just yelling at you.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good
I don't know.
point, because I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I tried out for JTF2, I was the second oldest guy ever to make it.
Oh,
Yeah, I was the second
I
oldest.
do remember you telling me you were one of the older, but second oldest. No, I didn't know that.
I was the second oldest guy to ever make it. And I remember when I was training, PSP, they looked at my numbers and I was like, okay. Obviously the advantage is less at your age, but you're still good. But I remember telling friends, coworkers, all that sort of shit, I'm doing it. And they looked at me like, what? You're too old. You'll never make it. He's like, you can't do it at your age. You're crazy. Everybody doubted it for the age. You know what I mean? And I could have listened to them and said, yeah, but I use that, man, as like anger. It was part of, what we talked about last time about using anger and emotion and stuff.
Yeah.
I just use that as fuel and anger. And every time somebody told me I wasn't going to make it because of my age, I was like, just watch. You know what I mean?
Rage motivation, man.
Yeah. But if I wasn't mentally strong enough at that point, or my voices weren't on my side, they could have worn me down easily. And I could have said, yeah, you're right. I'm old now and I won't make it for my age and da-da-da, you know? So yeah, 100%. If those voices could have derailed my career and I never try out if they weren't on my side.
Makes me think of Lethal Weapon. Danny Glover and Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Riggs, I'm too old for this shit. You know, and it's like they're both hearing the voices in their head, right? Telling them like, you're past your prime. There's no way. Forget it. Give up. You're not a has-been. You're a never was. But what did they do? They still went out and kicked ass and took names anyways. Right? Yeah, sure. It's a movie, but it's a great example of literally what two men, two alpha, whatever you want to call it, two detectives, two people good in their field, they contend with that. And that's what we're dealing with, right? So you have the past, like I said, recap. You have the past beating you up, you have the present making you feel like you're behind, and the future feeling like it's impossible, right? And somehow we're supposed to still show up and perform, right? Now, let me tell you how that actually plays out in our life as men. Okay? So how it shows up, how it manifests. So we have confidence. So first and foremost, it is going to absolutely destroy our confidence. So the voice is telling you not to try because failure is basically guaranteed. Right? Men go quiet in rooms where they should be speaking. They do not submit to the application. They do not ask the question. Right? So confidence is shot. So Jason, what about you? Have you ever caught yourself sitting? I always think of like maybe the meetings you sat in. I think you're a pretty confident individual, very capable individual.
Yeah.
But have you ever caught yourself sitting on something you should have said in a meeting or in a room?
Yeah, and the way this was taught to me from the guy who kind of like mentored me through special forces and stuff, and he's like, you need competence to get your confidence. You know, he's like, if you're not competent, you're not going to have the confidence at all. So whatever you want to speak about, whatever you want to do in life, you need the competence. And you're only going to get that from training, from putting in the hours, from putting in all that stuff. And that's what will help you lower those voices of negativity, that doubt that you're going to be able to succeed. Because the more competent you are, the more confidence you are. But there's a very thin line between confidence and cocky. And people don't realize that. And it's a slippery slope. A lot of people will think they're confident, but they're just cocky. You know? And then when you go into the meeting and you talk and you're not as competent as you think you are, and then you just get ripped apart in that meeting, well, you'll never talk again. So if you go into that meeting and you're confident, you've done the research, you know you are researching or what you want to talk about, then by all means talk in those meetings. But a lot of times I was quiet, or I wouldn't express my emotions because I thought, oh, I'm too young, I'm the new guy, or I've only been in for a couple of years and they won't take me seriously. But I should have spoke up because I was very competent in what I was going to talk about, whether it was explosives, whether it was part of the stuff that I was trained to do. But I wouldn't say anything. I would let the senior guys talk. And that's what kind of holds you back a little, you know? So, yeah, like, but it should have piped up more and stuff like that. But it's like, I always tell people, if you want to, just be competent in what you want to talk about, and everything will be fine. But if you're cocky and you're going to try to talk, you will get crushed every time. Like when we're at the gym and I'm cocky with you. And how about the weights?
Arm day.
What to do. Yeah, like, and I'm cocky, I eat humble pie 9 times out of 10. But if there's something else we're going to do, like the push-ups or whatever, and I'm competent at what I'm doing because of the training I did on it and that, I'm fine, But you can see the big difference when people come in the gym and they're cocky. And the voices will win over cocky every time. Once you start struggling, once you don't succeed in your cockiness, then the voices are going to win. But if you're competent in your training and what you've done, your diet, your food, then the voices, I find, will be on your side.
Yeah, and I think that would stop someone like, when I mentioned earlier, right? So men go quiet in a room where they maybe should be speaking. This is a perfect example, right? Or they don't submit the application. And this is where I think it's really important to understand that you might have less, let's say, theoretical experience than somebody. But if you have lived, lived, practical experience. I'll always think of when I was in the culinary course in medium security. When I went to medium, one of the first things I did is there was a course available for inmates to take that was for culinary level 1. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like I'd done a whole bunch of cooking when I was in maximum security. I actually really liked it. I started working in the kitchen when I went to medium, and I got along really well with the person that was heading up the program. So I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do it. And I remember like really trying to, at this point, excel in everything that I did. I actually started to build some pretty good self-confidence, probably for the first time in my life, right? And the person teaching the course told me, he's like, you've got really good book knowledge. Because I was nailing the tests like 90, 93, 95, 98%. Everything was in the mid to high 90s when I would take the test. And he's like, and your cooking is good. He's like, but you should focus more on the practical rather than the theoretical. Because no one cares when they hire you. If you go to work in a restaurant when you get out, good thing I didn't. That's not something I'd ever want to do. But he was right. He's like, you can have the best marks in the class, but if you have a shit palate, no one's going to hire you. Yeah. No one cares what you got on your marks, right? All that matters is how good are you at actually doing the work. And sometimes that can stop a man from submitting an application. Right? Well, I wasn't good in the subject. I didn't do well. I'm dumb. But yet you actually know the work inside and out, eyes closed, blindfolded, in pitch black. Upside down, hell, whatever. You can do it. But there's that self-doubt, right? That confidence.
Yeah.
You give up before you even try. Right? And that was a valuable lesson for me. I'm so glad I had that guy as a teacher. Never forget his name, G.
Yeah. Plus, you were already fat, so thank God you didn't become a chef.
Fat kid lives in all of us there, buddy, wrapped in bacon.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know. And I find, like, people ask me all the time, well, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? It's like hours and hours and hours of practice. Like you say, sitting alone in a room with your thoughts. Until I started sitting alone in quiet rooms with my thoughts, they never got better. I try to run away from that inner voice in me every time I struggled with it, with my PT, especially my later years. That's where the voices the negative stuff came out. Like my PTSD, and all that. Like those voices were really winning because like why are you feeling this way? You're weak. You didn't go to you weren't in World War One. You weren't in World War Two. What's the big deal? Like those guys had it harder than you. The Vietnam vets had it harder than you. Korean vets. And so my later years, the voices were really bad, and they were against me when I had the PTSD and stuff like that. Sorry, I should have brought that up from the start.
No, but that's there's no wrong time to bring it up. But you're yeah, I can't even imagine. You're absolutely right. You know, you went through some pretty crazy shit. I mean, you talked about this in the introductory episode. You know, you shared some stuff with me that I wasn't even aware of. That I'm sure a lot of my audience who knows you from the gym probably like, I did not know Jay went through that, did that, right? A newfound respect. But then there's you. Like, well, yeah, the guys though in World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, they went through way worse than me. So what do I have to complain about? Yeah. And there's that comparison, right?
Yeah. So I struggled with that. I struggled with that a lot in the PTSD, and then it actually kind of like you just feel like the voices in your head just make you feel weak mentally, and they make you, why am I feeling like this? Why am I such a wimp? As we say, sorry, but why am I such a pussy to feel like this? Why can't I be strong and confident? And then the military gives you pills that make the voices stop, and then as long as you got the pills, the voices aren't there. And then it's just a vicious circle. But yeah, the voices with PTSD were really winning with me for a long time.
Yeah, you want to numb out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is truly what addiction is. Addiction is, it's not, we've talked about this before. Addiction, it's not the alcohol. It's not the food. It's not the drugs. It's the voices. It's the reality. It's the reality of, your past reality, your present reality, your future reality. It's one of those things that you're just trying not to deal with. Right? I need 5 minutes. The thing is, sure, have your drink. Smoke your joint. Do your drug. Eat your food. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 60 minutes later. The problem's still there, and so's the voice. Because you keep running from the damn problem. You made an interesting, I think a great comparison. You talked, and I'll kind of talk about it personally. You said, you compared yourself to what others went through. Now, when I was in prison, right, guys would come in the gym, especially, you start to chat with other guys. You see them, they show up around the same time as you. You get to talking, and guys will ask, hey, what are you in for? Right? Well, I'm in for second degree, got a life sentence. Guys like, oh, bro, I'm sorry, man. I've just got this, right? And they share whatever their sentence is. Oh, you've got it way worse. And I would tell guys, and in the beginning, I actually thought, yeah, like when I was the victim, right? When I had that victim mindset, oh, woe is me, well, poor me, I'm doing a life sentence. It's not fair. No, idiot. What's not fair is you took someone's life, and you're still breathing. Just shut up. Right, that's one thing I had to get past. And once I got past that, right, once I stopped being a damn victim, these other guys would come in, you have it so much worse. No, you know what? We're all in the same boat. Whether you're in here for 6 months, 6 years, or 20, we're all battling the same voices. We're all struggling. We're all away from our loved ones. We're all hurting. And that's the thing, as men, whether you're a vet, whether you've been to prison, or whether you're doing time in your own self-imposed prison, we all have a similar issue. We all have similar voices that are playing in our head. Just because I went through something or you went through something maybe worse, you could say, right? Worse than someone else, doesn't mean that what they're dealing with isn't the worst thing that they've been through in their life. It's just frame of reference. We might look at what they're going through and be like, that's nothing. But that's only because then we'd lack empathy. Not understanding that what that individual is dealing with is the hardest thing they've ever had to go through. Which is why they feel their life is over, or that their world is falling apart. And that's one of the best things I learned from prison, is just to be empathetic of other people. Right? Unless you've walked a mile in that person's shoes, shut your mouth. I don't care how much lived experience you have on the subject. That's that person's Mount Everest. So either support them or just don't share your opinion. Yeah. What is that from Bambi? If you got nothing nice to say, Thumper's mom said, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
If you can't be supportive of a fellow brother struggling, just shut up. No one cares about your opinion, and he definitely doesn't need to hear it right now. It doesn't mean sometimes you don't have a hard talk with someone in your circle. Yeah, sometimes we need to have a hard talk with someone who's being the victim. But understand, right? You have to seek first to understand what they're dealing with before you seek to be understood. Then you have a chance of helping them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like when I was at kind of like my peak war stuff, with all that, like guys coming home, like missing a hand, missing an arm, stuff like that. And then, I'd call home and talk to my brothers and stuff like that. And they'd be like, my older brother would be like, oh, I'm stressed out. And I remember laughing on the phone because I didn't have the empathy at the time. He'd be like, oh, I'm stressed with work and that. I was like, dude, you're in Canada. You're not in war. Like, how are you stressed at work? Why is that bothering you? You have 2 kids. Like, everything should be perfect. Just me didn't have the empathy to understand what he was going through and how stressful that was and all that sort of stuff, Like, you get in your bubble and you think, wow, this guy lost an arm. Like, how could you even talk that you're stressed at work, and stuff like that. So it's, like you say, you have to learn, like, for that person, that is the most stressful thing they're going through. They're struggling with it, and everybody's different. Some people can take a lot. Some people, it's the little things that just really stress them out and, make them not go to the gym, make them overeat, make them skip workouts and everything else. Like you're saying, go back to weed. And
I think it's just something, because as men, we're not very emotionally aware. we're not. We suck so bad at that. So it's like, we always just kind of like, we'll just suck it up.
Yeah.
And it, like, okay, I get it. Some days we have to suck it up. But sometimes just trying to be a little bit understanding might serve those around us a little bit better. So I appreciate that's a great analogy. And so again, we just talked about confidence. Now we have self-worth. Right? There's the other obstacle that now we're dealing with, right? How it shows up. Self-worth. Well, again, let's look at our past, right? The voice tells you you're the problem, right? Not the circumstances. Men who believe this, they don't ask for help. Because I don't know what it is with guys. We white knuckle that like through everything, right? We're on the journey of life behind the wheel. We're just white knuckling it.
Yeah.
We don't stop. Just pull over for a minute and just let go for a second. Let go of the steering wheel for a second. Take a breath. Kind of reframe our mind, gain some perspective, and then try a different approach. Maybe look at what we're doing wrong, right? No, we're just white knuckling it all the way. Foot on the gas, going 100, hoping we don't crash. Right? So, do you think that this is a man thing specifically, or is this just a human thing?
Well, I think it's definitely a man thing. Like, we're stubborn. We just, you know what I mean? We're stubborn. Like, because you're always told, like, men have to figure it out. Men have to support and be the strong ones. And, like, oh, if you're stressed, just have a drink at night and suck it up. And the next day, get up and do what you need to do and stuff like that. Like, just, I don't know, like my whole generation and yours and stuff, we didn't talk. Like men just didn't talk. It just wasn't a thing. It wasn't even like close to being a thing. You know, you just had to step up. You had to do what you had to do to provide for the family. If that meant you had to work a shitty job your entire life and do what you didn't want to do, well, men did it. But they died from alcohol poisoning or whatever because they just drank themselves to death because they hated their life and they never thought about changing, never thought about talking about it, never... Like, how many men died prematurely just from shitty jobs, abusing substances to get them through the days and stuff like that, not liking their life they're in now, not liking where they're living maybe or something, but they just said, well, what am I going to do now? I'm stuck. I have the kids. I have to keep this job. I can't lose this job. Nobody's going to support me if I want to go back to school and learn it. I can't afford to go back to school because now I have a house, a wife, and kids. You know, like how many men have just not done anything because they never thought they'd get supportive or just had that mindset?
I don't think there's two words when put together that are more detrimental to a man's well-being, really, even a woman's, but a man's well-being, than I can't. I can't, right? Self-worth. I can't do better. I can't do this. I can't learn this. I don't deserve better than this, right? Whatever, however you kind of want to phrase it. And that's why, like you said, men will stay stuck. I can't. It's hard. I can't. I'm tired. I can't. I don't deserve it. I mean, I think for the longest time, that's why I stayed with my ex. Like, every red flag that could have been waved was waving. Like, I mean, red flags everywhere. And look, I was a red flag myself too. Okay, I'm not gonna point just a finger at her. But my self-confidence was in the 3 cc's of whatever steroid I was taking. That was my self-confidence. I was as confident as long as I could be physically strong by taking as much possible gear as I could put in my system. And then just numb myself by smoking as much weed as I could smoke. Numb out.
Yeah.
Right?
And unfortunately, the numb out medicine is easier to get now than they used to be. I mean, back then you had alcohol, but now that weed is legal and all the numb out stuff is just legal, and guys are driving on it, guys are working on it. Like, I don't know how many people I know that go to work on weed or take a half a gummy just to get them through the day and numb out and stuff. Like, you couldn't do that with alcohol. Like, it was harder, but people can take Ativan and weed and all that shit all day long now.
I love when I hear people say, and I used to say this too, I function fine on weed. Yeah, okay, sure, you function, but you're not productive. You're existing. You're not living.
Yeah.
Stop trying to kid yourself. Oh, I can drink. It's it's not a problem. Yeah, okay, sure. But let's see how you feel if you don't drink this weekend. What are the voices telling you now? You like what you're hearing? Ooh, probably not. Well, let's have another drink. And it's always that reason, that justification. Well, I'm with the boys, Okay. So all of you guys need to drink every weekend when you get together. Why? Is there a reason why? Like, has anyone ever stopped and asked why? And don't give me that line, it's tradition. Like, don't give me that shit, okay? Yeah. You can take tradition, you can stick it up your ass.
Because alcohol takes all the serious away and just leaves the happiness. That's why people love it. Well, it's like it takes all that bad shit out of your mind and puts it in the back. It goes and hangs out in the back. And it just lets you have a good time and laugh and be stupid. But then it just sits
there. You are like joking about how shitty your marriage is, how dumb your kids are, you know, how shitty your job is, and how much you hate your boss. The thing is, all the things you're joking about, there's a degree of truth to that.
Yeah.
Right? But hey, alcohol makes it funny. Ha 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 ha. You're not laughing, they'll come to Monday. Right? The voices get silenced for that little bit. Now the voices that are in your head are now just being projected in a different, I guess a more palatable way.
Yeah.
You could say, right? Anyways. And then last, we have something we've talked about before, identity. Right? So identity. The voice tells you that the man you want to be is not really you. It's trying to reinforce that you're an imposter. Right? And this one's the most dangerous because it doesn't just block the action, it blocks who you think you are allowed to become. Yeah, so Jason, I think a lot of guys listening to us right now probably just feel like, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. Right? That has my number. They know exactly what version of themselves that they want to be, but something keeps telling them that they're not that guy. Right? Have you ever had to fight this one yourself?
Yeah, like you're always going to go through your self-doubt, where you self-doubt yourself. You know, you're always going to do that. Like, am I smart enough to apply for that job? Am I, physically fit enough and mentally strong enough to try out for whatever I want to try out? Like, I know a lot of people that want to be a firefighter and paramedic, but they're like, oh, they have so many applications, I won't be able to be a firefighter. People will beat me out. And I'll be like, well, how do you know unless you even apply? You know, so many people are like, oh, I want to go back to school, but it's just so long, and then I may not even get a job even after I graduate. It's like if you've already self-doubted, like you've already crushed yourself to the point you're not even going to try. You know, like, yeah, there's thousands of people that apply for a firefighter, paramedic, police officer, all that stuff all the time. But you never know unless you try. Like, maybe you have something they're looking for. But if you self-doubt yourself or question yourself, like I think I tried out JTF probably 4 or 5 years too late from self-doubt. You know, I could have been there 3-4 years earlier. But I was like, I'm not strong enough yet. A couple more years. You know, I'll get some more experience. I'll do some more, whatever. When I'm older, it'll be better. But I should have, even for myself, I should have tried out when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think you just hit a nail on the head for me, because it made me think of someone we're both friends with, right? And it's like, well, I should try out for CSOR instead, maybe. I'll have an easier time getting into, instead of the elite, I'll go into the, as you refer to it as the B team.
B team, yeah.
Right? I'll go into the B team. Now, still a hell of an achievement, I think, by anyone's standards, right?
Yeah.
But instead of taking the hardest route or trying out for the hardest thing, right, we end up starting to justify and start choosing the easy path, right? Well, I'm going to make the safe bet. I'm going to make the safe choice. And then what happens, right, is we continue to make the safe choice because we don't want to risk failure, again, because we're dealing with that voice. Right? So now that space between where we want to be, when we first, let's say, wanted to become, you wanted to become special forces, the space was smaller. Why? Because you were younger. You had youth on your side. Maybe you had a little less experience, but you had youth on your side, right? So there's the longer you waited, that 5 years, that playing it safe, what did that increase?
My age and fatigue and
right. It kind of dwindled down your chances. Now look, you still did it, which is great. But this is just for something maybe for our listeners to think of, right? The perfect time doesn't exist. Stop chasing perfect.
Yeah.
Stop looking for the stars are going to align. Just waiting for I don't know the solar system. I'm going to sound like an idiot right now, but I'm just going to wait for Jupiter to align with this, and no, right? Or if I just, I need to get this much money in my account before I do that. Or I just need to pay off this bill before I try to do this for myself. Or, and there's just an excuse after an excuse after an excuse. And then before you know it, you're on your deathbed.
Yeah.
And you've just played it safe your whole life. And you never amounted to the man that you could have been. And that's literally a life plagued with regret.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody always wants to wait for the perfect time to put the application in. I'll wait, and then when things are better, I'll put the application in. Or I'll go back to school when things are a little less hectic at home. I'll start, that's a big one you hear all the time at the gym. I'll start training when I sort this other stuff out in my life first.
Finances aren't great. Yeah, I know. I'm right now in the process of literally expanding my business, investing money. Fortunately, it's I'm able to do it, but I'm still taking on a big risk.
Yeah.
Was it the perfect time to do it? Nope. But the moment that I heard of this opportunity, my gut told me this was the right thing to do. And I talked it over with my wife. She always backs my play. If it's reasonable. Let's be clear. And she backed my play. And you know what? Nope. The stars hadn't aligned. There was some doubt, some self-doubt. There were some voices, some hesitation. But my gut told me it was the right thing to do. Last time I didn't listen to my gut, it cost someone their life, and it cost me over 10 years of my life. So, stop listening to the damn voices in your head and start trusting your instinct that it's the right thing to do. Take a damn chance on yourself, guys. Take a risk. You might, you might fail. You might fail. But you know what? You might succeed. Just like Jay. So let's talk about the work, right? So let's name the voice, right? Give it a source, right? Whose words are you actually hearing, right? Is it a coach, a parent, a teacher, an old version of you, right? The voice you're hearing, it's not always your own. It's a voice you've heard on repeat, either from your, mostly I think from the past, from your past or from the present you. So put a name to it, right? Jason, when you put a name or face to the voice, would you say it loses power or it just gets more specific?
It gets more specific. Like, when I hear some negative stuff and I put that voice to, like, my parents, or I put that voice to, like, just one teacher that had no confidence or something like that. Like, I put it to the person that said it, and it gives me that pissed offness to it.
Yeah. Dark motivation, right? It's like, wait a minute. It's actually not me. Wait, this isn't me. This is someone else who doubted me. Why am I listening to Vinny from grade 5?
Yeah, exactly.
So who the F is Vinny? And what's Vinny doing with his life, right? Like it's sometimes an old bully. But that's what we're hearing. So next you need to separate the voice from the truth, right? That voice is loud. Okay. It doesn't mean that it's accurate. Right? How do you actually do that in the moment though? When the voice is firing and you're stressed and you want to believe it.
For me, it's, remember I said before, like sometimes where you just take that 2-3 seconds, you know what I mean? You take that kind of deep breath. Yep. If you can, throw some water on your face, whatever you can do, it just gives you that little okay, you almost have to reset the computer. The computer's running away, something's thinking. You just got to stop that brain, stop your computer, kind of reset it for some water and be like, okay, I got this, It's like you got to cut it off fast because if you let it go, it's a runaway train. It's a runaway train. You're not going to be able to stop it. So you got to get the brakes on as soon as possible.
It's kind of what we talked about before. I've talked about this. I mentioned this, right? Your first thought you're not responsible for that. That first voice you hear, you're not responsible for that. That's conditioning. That's how you've been programming yourself for years doing this. It's okay. So that first voice, that first thought comes in. Now there's that small space. We've talked about that small space between the first thought and your second thought and your first action. That's that reset right there. Okay, wait a minute. I'm doubting myself. I'm hearing this. I'm hearing Vinny. Shut up, Vinny. Stop letting your past live rent-free in your head. Start being present. Assess. Stop white-knuckling it like we talked about. Stop holding on for dear life. Pull over. Like Jay said, reset. Stop. Splash water on your face. Breathe. Go for a walk. Whatever you can do.
Yeah.
Stop letting these things control you. You do have a degree of power in your life. But that power only applies to what you do and what you think and how you act. Nothing else around you. Those things. That's still a lot. And if you can control those things, you're doing more than most men ever will.
Hell yeah. If you can remind yourself that your brain works for you and not the other way around, like, I have to remind myself all the time, especially when I was going through my PTSD and my trauma and everything else. I had to constantly tell myself, my brain works for me, okay? And I'm the boss, and this is it. And it's not that easy. I didn't say it once, and I was like, oh, okay, everything's great. Fuck no. I struggled and fell off the path like we talked about and everything else so many times, but I had to keep reminding myself, keep reminding my brain, keep the fight. It's a fight every day. You fight every day. Like, people think the fight goes away. No. It's a race with no finish line. And you just keep going.
And I think this ties in perfectly. You need to build evidence against it.
Yeah.
You have evidence right now in believing what you believe, right? But you can also build evidence to the contrary. And I don't think most people realize that. That's the trick. Right? I used to be a screw up. I used to be not dumb, but I was lazy. I didn't want to apply myself. So I was dumb because of lack of effort. But then I started to apply myself. I stopped being a victim. I stopped letting my struggle be my disability. Right? So every rep, every test, every hard conversation, every no that I kept, every promise that I kept to myself, every time I showed up when I didn't want to, that's my counter argument. That was me being able to prove, no, I'm not a screw up. I'm not my past. I'm not a murderer. I'm not an ex-con. I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not a failure as a son. I'm just a human being who made a mistake. Made a lot of mistakes. But that doesn't have to be who I am right now. Doesn't have to be who you are. Or who our audience is. Your past doesn't define you. The time that you've lost, it doesn't matter. All that matters is making the most of the time you have left. That's what matters. Build evidence against the voices living in your head. It's hard.
Yeah.
That's kind of the 10,000 hour rule, right? We've been doing life the wrong way for a long time. So all it takes is starting to make an effort in the right direction. And the more you work at it, the better you're going to get at it. 10,000. So, guys, you need to stop waiting to feel ready. Confidence, it follows action. It doesn't precede it. Right? Do what you say you're going to do. Stop talking about what you're going to do and just friggin' do it.
Yeah, a lot of people love to talk about their plan.
Shouting affirmations. I am slim. Oh, you're not, fatty. No, I'm not saying those things can't be beneficial, but the real work happens when nobody's watching. It happened when you were in the pool on your own, practicing for what the hardest test you were going to go through, those 7 days of hell. Mine was in a cell. Right? No one was cheering me on. No one was applauding me. No one was applauding you. No. We did it. We showed up. We did it. Even when we didn't want to. Even when we didn't feel like it. Even when we wanted to quit. Shut up. Get through the day. Quit tomorrow. Wake up. Do it again. Get through the day. Quit tomorrow. Keep going through it. And don't quit. That's how you beat this.
Yeah.
That's it. So in closing, guys, the goal is not to silence the voice permanently. It doesn't work. The voice is always going to be there, okay? Like, as much as I'd like to say it, yeah. As much as I would love to leave the audience with like this happy ending that, hey, okay, I'm going to frame this for my audience. A little over 10 years that I was incarcerated, worked out to, I believe, 87,000 hours of work. Wrap your head around that. 87,000 hours. Forget the 10,000 hour rule. I had 8 times more than that. And I still struggle with it. Are you guys getting it yet? Okay? The goal is just to stop letting it make the decisions for you. That's it. Now, I want to paint a bigger picture for the audience before closing. I want you to understand the gift that is life. Okay, and this is really cool. So, Jay, I'm going to ask you, do you know what the odds, and because you're an accountant, you're good with numbers, do you know what the odds of you being alive are? Does anyone in our audience know what the odds are?
Yeah, it's like 1 in 1 billion something from, yeah.
So here, I got the math here, okay? So
Yeah.
it's 1 in 10 to the 2,685,000th power. So here it is. So that is 1 divided by 10 followed by 2.7 million zeros. So to visualize this, I want you to imagine every grain of sand on every beach, in every desert, on every ocean floor on planet Earth. Now, I want you to multiply that by 1 billion. Now, multiply that by 1 billion again. Keep going. And don't stop until you forget how many times you've done it. Like, are we grasping this right now, okay?
Yeah.
Now pick 1 grain of sand. That grain is you. Right? That's how unlikely you are to be alive today. We're literally statistically impossible. Like, that's crazy. So I'm going to ask the audience a question. Again, why care about what Vinny from the 5th grade thinks about you? You know, why shrink yourself for a room that's not even going to remember your name in 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 minutes from now? Why are you playing it safe? Why are you still waiting for the right moment? If you're listening to this, you are a living miracle. You're proof that miracles literally exist. Sorry, atheists. Now you have to understand, right? You came here with nothing. You're going to leave here with nothing. So you better be damn grateful for everything that you've survived, endured, and achieved in your life. And if you're struggling, Be grateful for that too. Some people will never have that opportunity. So stop overthinking the past. Stop listening to the voices in your head. Stop holding on to it. Let go of it. Let go of it all. Go after your dreams. Pursue your goals, no matter what others might think. Jay and I have proven that despite all odds, there's a chance of succeeding. So guys, for the audience, I want you to do one thing this week. I want you to catch the voice once. Just once. Name where it came from and ask whether or not it's true. So, Jay, as always, thank you for being here. Appreciate your insight, your lived experience. It's always something that I learn. I'm hoping there's always something that the audience is going to learn from this. So thank you, and stay tuned for another episode of From Shadows to Strength. Bye for now.